I think that it is quite interesting to look at the white reaction. They were fed this kind of total onslaught on civilization nonsense by the military and the police and the politicians, the apartheid politicians, for ages, but not less so in the 1980s. So I think if you had an opinion survey in 1988 among white people and Afrikaans people, should we have a democracy, should we abolish apartheid, 90% would have said absolutely not. Should we release the ANC? Absolutely not. So there was a bit of a bravery going on in terms of the Klerk and his inner group. The Afrikaner Broederbond played an interesting role in preparing for this decision, because they were kind of behind the party or further back, they suddenly went ahead because they had a new leader, a man with the name of Peter de Lange, and they realized, he had meetings with Thabo Mbeki in New York earlier, and he realized that the Afrikaner Broederbond was ideally placed to prepare society, Afrikaner society, for this kind of thing. So they had, over months and months and months, they had masses of private meetings and small meetings and house meetings and influence leaders and to try and kind of prepare the ground for this. I think F.W. de Klerk, if he does deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, it would be for the fact that once this decision was made, which he had little other choice but to make, he should get credit for the fact that he then sold it to his constituency. He worked tirelessly. I watched him. He went crisscrossed this country. He spoke at house meetings, at town meetings, at church meetings. He spoke to the military, he spoke to the police, to try and sell the idea that the tide of history has turned. It's safe now with international communism gone. We need prosperity in this country and we're not going to get it. And apartheid didn't work out. And here's a way. And I promise you, you're going to have minority protection and all kinds of other things. And then he had the guts to call a white referendum in 93, which if he had lost it, and a lot of people before that referendum said he could lose it, would have meant the end of his career. And that took guts to say, well, then so be it, then I'll go down with it. And in the end, he got almost 70%. So, yeah, it went against the grain for most whites, especially most Afrikaners. But this cajoling was going on, and a bit of false promises, and a bit of wrong expectations, and a bit of pressure. And of course, then you had stuff like the international community started playing a role and saying, well, we like what we're seeing. You can have the All Black and the Australian rugby team come and play in South Africa again for the first time in many years. Now, that is a very, very strong thing to tell an Afrikaner audience. That if you're prepared to compromise, and we have a deal here, you can, because rugby is very close to Afrikaner middle class religion. We can play the All Blacks again. We can play the English, because Afrikaners always believed that we were the best in the world. And the only reason why we're not the champion rugby team is because we were not allowed to play them. And here was the chance. So all those we could travel again. White people could travel all over the world. The passport suddenly became one accepted everywhere. So all these little things added up. There was a right wing that resisted this, and the very same Constant Viljoen that I referred to earlier was the man who, he had then retired as head of the Defence Force, but he was still a very powerful man. He formed a committee of generals, and they mobilized something like 150,000 people in the country with arms, and a lot of them inside the Defence Force, to essentially, if need be, effect a coup. And again, two factors meant that didn't happen. The one was the the regular defence force stayed true to course. They stayed true to culture of serving the government of the day, which is one of the blessings we have in South Africa before 94 and after 1994. We don't have a culture of a military breathing down the neck of a civilian government. So I know how unhappy the military were at de Klerk's plans, and yet they had to support him. So the head of the defence force at the time, General Mayram, went to General Constant Viljoen, who was the leader of this mass group of people all over the country who were going to stage a coup, and said to him, and Viljoen was his mentor, they were close friends, and he said to him, "My friend, you know that I will have to shoot you if you launch this campaign, because this is my job under the Constitution." So that was a little fortuitous thing. The other thing was Nelson Mandela. You could never throw out the role that he played. He specifically met with Constant Viljoen and his generals and his men, and reassured them and cajoled them and seduced them. But also in terms of broader South Africa, he became the face of the ANC. And white South Africans were astonished to see this handsome, dignified man walk from jail 27 years, and he didn't want to chuck them in the sea. He was this generous, sweet, wise man. And it's not something one can measure, but my feeling is always that if we had a different kind of leader than Mandela, a lesser charismatic, someone who didn't understand that was what he was supposed to do, that we would have had a different way of developing. But he came with this vision of, I have to seduce the white people, I have to take them with me, I have to reassure them, I have to take them with me, I have to liberate them also. And at the same time, I have to keep my constituency behind me. And that was a dance that few people could dance, that he danced very successfully.